So I'm gonna give a little crash course basically on user experience for those who don't know. It's like pretty hard to describe sometimes to people why it is important, what it is actually at all. So I'll try to explain to you what user experience is and give you like a short range of tools that you might want to use for your mobile application. Who am I? I'm Kevin. I'm one of the mentors running around here, able to help you hopefully. I'm a research scholar from Germany, getting my master's degree right now over here in mobile app conception, user experience, usability. What is user experience? Usually, you should start with the definition, even though that's kind of a little boring sometimes. I took two. One of them is like a person's perceptions and responses that result from the anticipated use of a product, system, or service. So, what is important here is it's a person's perception, so it's subjective. You can't what's often happening in marketing. You can't target everybody. You want to be to a specific person. You want to be subjective about it. Also important, it's not just the use itself, it's also the anticipated use. So if you see a product, you usually think I want to have that already, even though you've never tried it. So that's also user experience. You also feel like the product has value to you. The other one I found is UX momentary, primarily evaluative, feeling good, bad while interacting with the product or service. So you see, you never say oh, that product is a range of 1 to 10, it's like a 5 or 6 or whatever. You always say I didn't like that, I like that, or I want that product, or I don't want that, or why would I need that? So you always have this momentary look at it. In one case, if you have a product, it might be useful for you at that time because you might need it for a certain task. At another moment, you might not need it. So you have always different user experience based on the time you use it. So it's context based. But instead of using definitions, I would rather say use samples. So one of those best examples is the good old error messages. So you don't even understand what's going on in here. This might lead to users completely canceling using your product. They would just skip out. Instead, if you look at this one, they give you feedback. Feedback is probably the most important thing you can have in an application. If you save something, if you delete something, you always want to have feedback, what's going on. In this case, you have an error message. You don't get your page displayed, but at least it tells you you're not connected to the internet. So you have a clue on what you might want to do to fix that problem. Otherwise, you just stand there, I don't know what to do, and you just, I don't know, go for another product. Especially if it's a mobile app, there's probably thousands of those that do a similar thing. Another good thing that I found is this printer. You have this button confirm erase down here. So how do you know when you confirm something and when you erase something? Especially if you're it's something important, you do a scan. In this case, it's probably just going to be a scan or whatever. But still, you never know when do I confirm something or when I erase something. The idea is good to compress information, but it's it should be similar tasks that should be compressed to one. More in the design area, on the left is the old Amazon sign-up page or login page. On the right is a redesign. This worked for some time, but it's because Amazon probably gave you a big range of products, so that's why it worked. And if you look at it at first and you've never been to Amazon, you probably think of what the hell is going on here? What do they want from me? Do they want to give me newsletters, or what the hell is going on? In this case, it looks more like a regular sign-up form. So that's something that people know. If you can refer to something that people already know, it's going to be easier for them to understand. Also, it's the clarity of the page itself. Another thing is that is important. In this case, it's probably, I don't know if some of you probably have experience in web experience. Responsive web design. It's the most important thing right now. I don't know an exact number, but a lot of people go on the web with their mobile phones. So people try to be responsive. Some people don't even have adjusted to that. The other ones try this. So they just take their content and just stack it on top of each other. That is at least one step further if it's already applied to the mobile phone. But it's still not good because you're going to be endlessly scrolling. You got to think of how are you going to distribute your content to the mobile phone to actually fit it. Where do you want to position it? There's several controls where you can put your content on your page. Also, another thing that makes responsive web design important is if you look at Google and you Google on your phone, it will actually tell you if a site is mobile friendly now. So Google is actually putting a lot of emphasis on that. Here I have another example. Like, which one would you think is better in this case? Like, it's for creating tasks in a team. Any suggestions? B. Why?
It's right down there. You don't have to pull up any menu.
Alright. Yeah, actually this one turned out to be the better version. Like, it increased conversion rate, time spent on the mobile app. More users actually use the mobile app because of the clarity. This is called the hamburger menu. It's like, you've probably seen that at several pages. A lot of pages use it, a lot of apps use it. It's not that it's completely bad. It's good for some cases, but in many cases it helps like to use it for navigational patterns. It's better to use the tab bar because you have the clarity right away. You always have to tab, so you always will have one tab more rather than down here. You always have the clarity down here with the notifications. You always see what's going on. You know where you can go all the time. So this, in this case, would be the better version. There might be things if you want to switch channels or whatever in a radio station. It might be maybe good to like have a hamburger menu sliding in. You just switch the channel and you read chat messages about that radio channel or whatever. This is another example, Google Maps, which first might look like a really good thing. It also is. But like there was one thing bothering me here, and it says like 3 minutes slower. Like in the context of driving a car, why would you put like a note that there's a route like 3 minutes slower? You want to have the fastest road to get to the place you want to go, right? Also, you're riding a car, so you don't want to look at your screen all the time. So why would you give me another route that's 3 minutes slower and something that I have to read? You should tell me the direction that I want to go. So in this case, it's actually important to like save lives in that sense, because like you don't want to look on your screen all the time. You should pay attention to the road. So context. And that's my last example. Apple Watch and Android Wear right now. So which one do you think is better? I heard Android. Why? Yeah, that's pretty much like the answer that I expect, because like I think like why people choose it because of the clarity itself. So it's like clear what's going on. But then again, it's like a matter of like what do you want to know like at that point of time. Maybe you want to know like how the temperature is going to be throughout the day. Like if you look at it in the morning, like how's the temperature, how's the weather going to be like today. So that's why you have to like test your designs or like your applications in the end, because you want to know like what users you want to target and like what their expectations are when you use them. Those are two different use cases that you have right there. To create positive user experience that we just seen, like there was some better ones and some worse ones. I'm going to show you like a few tools that you might use, only like some short things that you might use today. I'll skip on that. The first thing is competitive analysis, basically meaning you look at how others do it. Like you look at app ideas that others have and try to see what's good, what's bad, make a list, make a checklist. It doesn't matter like what you do, but like look at them, what are they doing good, what are they doing bad, what were the thinking behind that. The other one we already talked about, you need to have a persona at the end like to pitch to. I would recommend doing that early in the stage, because you basically want to have it to design the application in the first place, because you want to have somebody that might use the application. So you want to know who you are designing for, who are you building for, what target group do you want to have. And here's like a pretty extensive example. It doesn't have to be like that detailed all in all, but like it gives you an idea. So you want to always have a name. You don't need that necessarily, but it describes the person you have. You want to have a picture to like get an image. You want to create a real person in that sense. You want to like as if you would talk to somebody. That's also why usually you want to have like a short description. It gives more empathy to the person. You feel like more as if you're actually targeting your user group that you want to have. Demographics like age, what does he like to do, also gives him more stuff. Goals, That's usually the important thing. What does he want to achieve, like by using a mobile application? Or what does he want to achieve altogether, like in his life? What is important to him? And you can also use like some like behavioral attributes where you can say like, oh well, he usually switches his phone like every year or every few months. As soon as something new comes out, like he switches that. So that gives him more attributes in regards of the mobile app, but also gives him like more characteristics. Another thing that's also pretty quick, you might have heard of user stories, which is usually as a user, I want to, so I can. So that's a model. So you say like as a user, I want to, I don't know, delete files from my Dropbox so I can clean it up on the go or whatever. But usually it just gives you information about the person, which is mostly the user or whatever, and you give like specific tasks that they might want to perform. But if you use something like that, that is called a job story. You go more with the context and motivation of the user, so you dig deeper, because people sometimes say they want something that they actually don't want, or like it has a deeper problem within it. So if you use a pattern like when, you use a situation when I'm at school, I want to look up stuff really quick so I can look smart. I don't know, something like that. So you know that you get like the motivation behind it and you get a context with it. That's important here. The other thing, sketches. I don't think I have to say too much about that, but like sketches, like I want to put emphasis that you should start on paper. I already said it in the presentation, but don't like dive right on your computer in like some designing software or whatever. Use sketches and paper. It gives you like a rough idea. It doesn't have to look perfect. You don't have to use any icons, but just like think about how you want to structure your application. What does it have to have in there? And if you've done that, you can use wireframes. Those are a little bit like polished version of sketches. Dr. Scharff is going to talk about that a little more, but it's also basically to just digitalize it and go one step further. Wireframes can be start from very low to like, say, this is a list basically, navigation, done. That would be like a low level wireframe. This is already one step further. It always shows you, okay, we have a list of contacts in here. You want to have a back button there and stuff like that. So it depends on how deep you want to go at that moment. If you've done that, you can use stuff like storyboards, like flowcharts, where you can look around how the structure of your app is going to be. You will figure out tasks that you want to use. You will figure out if you're missing like one step, or like let's say, well, I finished this one task, but now I can't go back to reach the other task that I want to perform. So you find errors in your application. The other thing is best practices. Also, Dr. Scharff is going to talk about that. There's guidelines from Apple, from Android, that are best practices that you should use, interface elements that you should use, when you should use them, and how you should design those. This is another example, like also maybe back to the hamburger menu. You might have noticed like the hamburger menu is up here in the left corner, which is the hard to reach area, because around 49% of users just use the phone thumb only. So it's like really hard to use the hamburger menu with the thumb, and that's also maybe why you saw like the tab bar in iOS is down here in the easy to reach area. Yeah, last but not least, that's probably what you're not going to do today, but user testing. You probably won't have time for that, but that's probably the most important thing about user experience, because it's about the users and how they use your product, and what you might not have thought of. And I took this example specifically because it's a paper prototype. In this workshop, you're gonna have like a digital prototype, but it doesn't have to be. I just want to put emphasis on that, because you find a lot of errors and like stuff that you didn't know already on paper before you put your energy into like programming something. Takeaway, user experience is important, obviously. You want to target your good users, you want to think about your users. Users don't think like you. You might think they want something that you think they need, but that's not always the case. That's also where this comes from. User experience design is not about knowing everything, but rather knowing how to know everything. So you have to acknowledge that you don't know what your users want. You have to acknowledge that you don't know like how to design for people, but you have to know the tools how to figure out what they want. In that sense, yeah, let's create the best experience out there.